Hey, Cities Church. This is Pastor David coming to you on April 16th as we're reading together 2 Peter chapter 2. And this chapter lands on us in an interesting time. This chapter is all about false teaching. And it's not irrelevant to lockdown because some of us are consuming as much video and audio and written text as ever as we're trying to make the most of this lockdown time. Hopefully much of it is spiritually helpful and not mindless. The question is not whether we're hearing the voice of false teachers in our media. The question is whether we can discern which messages are false. If you watch any television or listen to any podcast or radio or keep up on the news or interact at depth with just about anyone in modern society, you are being exposed to false teaching in some form. If you cannot identify any voices coming into your ears as false, it's not because you're not being exposed, it's because you're falling for it in some way. For much of church history, it took extraordinary energy and effort to influence the masses. Messages had to be copied by hand, and teachers had to travel on foot or horseback. There were no cars or airplanes, no printing presses, no websites, no Facebook pages. But today, every false teacher has a Twitter account. Some have documentaries on Netflix. Some have their own channel. So how then do we, as the church, discern true teachers from false ones in a world like ours when it's so easy to spread false teaching? 2 Peter gives us 3 truths about false teachers that I think are helpful. Number 1, false teachers will arise. This is the promise of verse 1. There will be false teachers among you. Cities Church, we should not be surprised to find false teaching in the church and online today. Jesus and his apostles were very clear that it would arise. They promise it. 2 Peter chapter 3 is going to say at the beginning, remember the words of the Lord and the apostles about this. Jesus said in Mark 13, false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform signs and wonders to lead astray, if possible, the elect. Be on guard. I have told you this beforehand, Jesus said. And then the Apostle Paul warned the Ephesian elders in Acts chapter 20 that false teachers would arise. And multiple times in 1 and 2 Timothy, he warns Timothy about false teachers that are coming. So Cities Church, let's not be caught off guard that false teachers have arisen throughout church history and they have multiplied in our day. They will. They have. They are. It is certain. False teachers will arise. Number 2, their conduct will betray their error. Their conduct betrays their error. Verse 2 mentions their sensuality. Verse 3 mentions their greed. And while we shouldn't be surprised that false teachers will arise, perhaps we feel surprised to see that the main indicator of their false teaching isn't the teaching itself, isn't the words itself, it's their lives. The focus here in 2 Peter chapter 2 is on their hearts and lives, not their words and teaching. False teaching produces false living. And maybe this brings to mind some other teaching from Jesus, like in Matthew chapter 7, when he says twice, you will recognize them by their fruits, which may sound clear and very simple at first, but as we all know, trees don't bear fruit overnight. Eventually, however, fruit or lack thereof will be manifest. And so it is with ethical compromise. What may begin as whispers in a quiet room will soon enough be proclaimed from the housetops. In time, the everyday lives of false teachers will reveal their falseness. Beneath their doctrinal error, however subtle or deceptive, we will find ethical compromises. But time will tell. They will be known by their fruits, and not the fruit of ministry quantity and numbers, but of quality and of endurance, and ultimately the quality of their own lives. So false teachers will arise. Number 2, they'll be known by their lives. Their teaching will be seen to be an error by how it's manifest ethically. And then 3rd, Jesus will rescue his church. This is such good news. This is verse 9. This is the climax of 2 Peter chapter 2. Look at verse 9. The Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials. This is so sweet. First, he does this through his church. He does it through real-life church communities that know and enjoy and live God's word for themselves, and they hold their leaders accountable to God's word. Healthy local churches where leaders' lives are known and exposed, are a great defense against the dark arts of false teaching. Little, if anything, can be done to hold teachers accountable who are far away, but much is realistic and actionable and necessary in the life of the local church. Our leaders need to be held accountable, appropriately appreciated and esteemed, yes, but not held in such high regard that we give them a pass on the normal Christian life. In Cities Church, in the context of our life groups, in our community groups, you do this for your pastor. So keep it up. Abound still more. We love it. We appreciate it. We want to be with you as the flock, first and foremost. We don't want to be distant. We are first and foremost sheep and only secondarily teachers and leaders. We want to be men who are manifestly more excited that our names are written in heaven than that we're used by Jesus as his under-shepherds for earthly ministry. And so we should have our systems, and we do, of accountability and do our best to watch our own lives and watch our doctrine. But in the end, there is no foolproof human system or effort. And this is why verse 9, as the pinnacle of this second chapter of 2 Peter, is so sweet. The Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials. No matter how twisted the teaching and subtle, no matter how publicly shamed the church may be over the expose of an unethical leader, no matter how dark the days become, no matter how helpless we may feel in guarding gospel doctrine and preserving gospel-worthy lives, we have this great sustaining hope, Cities Church. Jesus knows how to rescue the godly, and he will keep his true people and his true church. So as we read, as we listen, as we watch and try to make the most of these days in lockdown, let's not be naive. Let's not be unaware of Satan's schemes. May God make us, Cities Church, discerning. May he give us minds and hearts that welcome truth and are vigilant to see and to renounce error and falsehood. And may he work in us and through us in countless ways his infinite knowledge and his unbounded ability to rescue the godly.